In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Taun for the Saga line from back in 2002. Character I've been wanting to add to my collection for a number of years now at this point. But despite that, I actually do have a little bit of a long history with this particular character and action figure. Because back in the day, in the early to mid 2000s, I had a friend who owned this action figure. And of course, when I would go over to his house and bring over some of my action figures, and of course he had his, we'd make our scenes with it. And Taun was always one of those characters that was always in those displays or setups we would make. And I have very fond memories of that. And I've always wanted to add her to my collection ever since, but just haven't got around to it until recent years. A lot of it is was looking for a good price, which I finally found. I paid less than $10 for her. And then on top of that, it's looking for a lot of the right paint samples. Sometimes the eyes could be blotchy or just something doesn't look quite right in the face. But I think I finally found a sample that looks really good. Definitely a huge check mark on the list here. Still need to get Llama Sue at some point, which I hope to get. Preferably sooner than later, but we'll see. So Attack of Clones, Taun Communal Cloner. She has the clone vat here, I think is what it's called. Yeah, the paint turned out really good in the face here. Attack of Clones, 2002, figure number 25. I think she was one of the initial Attack of Clones action figures from back in the day. But Taun is aide to Llama Sue, the Prime Minister Kamino. Willowy and refined, Taun is a sleeve-like creature with large eyes and a gentle voice. She greets Obi-Wan Kenobi when he arrives at the cloning facilities of Taboka City, and she later introduces him to the mysterious clone host Jango Fett. Clone chamber here. Looks like you could add some lights behind it or under it or something. Give it that glowing effect. And the other action figures, the same friend actually owned this Royal Guard, and he was always part of some of the scenes as well. I think that might be a repack from the Power of the Force days. Wouldn't mind owning that one. I do recall seeing this Qui-Gon in the stores at the time, and I always kind of wanted him, but unfortunately that just never happened. And then after this, it was a number of years before we really saw Qui-Gon in stores ever again. Probably about 4 or 5 years later. And this Luminara, I would actually like to own at some point. I do like some of these pre-posed characters. And I think this was the very first Luminara Unduli action figure ever made. But I think she's going to be a relatively easy action figure to open up, so we'll just go ahead and do it on screen here. Not too bad. It's the clone chamber there. Yeah, very nice sculpting work here. I've always been really impressed with this action figure. And the Kaminoans in general. think that's a faithful likeness to her. Has the braid right there. Kind of a neutral expression, a long neck there. Rest of her outfit fairly plain. Let's have a little bit of a detail right there. Got the gems around her belt there, or her skirt. Nice blue colors. Very long arms here. She has 3 fingers. Be careful with articulating her limbs since they're so small. Don't want to risk them snapping off, and of course being in the package for 23 years now at this point, anything's possible. But you do have her legs there. It does look like she has a small footprint. But fortunately, she can't accommodate a stand. I think that would have been a good accessory for Hasbro to include here, like a environmental stand for Camino. But yeah, can't really get that arm of hers to articulate, but there we go. And I think that's pretty much her only articulation. It doesn't look like she has any in her head or her neck at all. And then the swivel at the shoulders there. Don't think anything in the wrist. Doesn't really... Yeah, there is a waist swivel right there. And I think that's it. It looks like her legs are pretty much just molded into place there. But a character like Taun, most people are probably just going to have her standing in the background and waving anyway. So that's perfectly fine. We're having both arms like up like this, like, whoa, what seems to be the problem here? And let's see how she stands. I think her skirt here will give her a little bit of stability. Could be a little bit better though, but still alright. Then we have the clone chamber here. Nothing really in it. I'm not sure if there is anything that's meant to go inside of this, or if you can pop that off or anything. It is a nice accessory to have regardless. I'm going to have to wipe it down every now and then because it looks like it's going to leave the fingerprint markings. Yeah, it looks good beside her there. But I think that's all I can really initially tell you about Taun here. We'll bring out a couple more characters here. One that's very fitting for the scene. That is Obi-Wan here. Well, she's giving them the tour. And they look really good side by side. Another fitting character is Jango Fett. I still need to get the Daniel Logan Boba Fett. I used to own that action figure years ago. Unfortunately, the arms did break off on it, and I ended up parting ways with the action figure over time. I would like to reacquire that one at some point. And then for a few other ones here, just a few clones. And I think they all look great together. But definitely a huge check mark on my list. Like I said, always been a fan of the Kaminoans and the whole Kamino arc in general. Would like to get Lama Su at some point. And yeah, they're great background characters to add. But a very nice action figure. I don't think Taun is probably ever going to be made ever again. She probably would be a deluxe action figure because of the unique tooling. But who knows? Hasbro does throw out some surprises every now and then. But this Taun is definitely a great action figure. More of a statue, but that's, like I said, more of a background character that you just have standing anyway. I'm glad she's part of the collection. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for playing more in the future. There's always more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your support, and check out the links in the description if you haven't done so already. And as always, thanks for watching.